Okay, folks. Every once in a while you see a headline that just stops you in your tracks.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we've got right now with this whole situation developing between the US, Denmark, and, that huge island up north, Greenland.
Yeah.
It's like something out of a geopolitical thriller. But Vice President Vance's trip there has really blown the lid off this simmering interest in Greenland.
Well, it's a story with a lot of layers to it, right?
It is.
You've got history, strategic interests, and then you throw in these pretty sharp diplomatic exchanges.
It's gotten pretty heated.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, you dug up this stack of news articles and briefings, all from late March 2025, and it's all focused on this Greenland situation, the statements, the reactions, the whole geopolitical picture.
Right.
So for everyone listening in, our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack what's going on.
Yeah.
We're going to look at what's driving the thinking in Washington, in Copenhagen, and in Nuuk, and try to figure out why this is happening now and why it matters.
And I think this is a great example of how things are changing in the Arctic.
Yeah.
You've got these big global powers jostling for position, and it can put a real strain on those old alliances.
It's a stress test for sure.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right into the deep end here and start with the Trump administration's renewed interest in Greenland. This isn't something brand new, though, is it? I mean, President Trump's been down this road before, hasn't he?
Right. It's interesting. President Trump has consistently had this ambition to acquire Greenland, even going back to his first term.
Mm-hmm.
He's on record saying things like, the U.S. has to have Greenland, and we can't do without it.
Strong words.
It's not just a passing thought. It seems like a real strategic goal for him.
So it's not just about, planting a flag and expanding the map.
Fair.
There are some serious strategic calculations here, right?
For sure.
Like, what are the main drivers behind this thinking?
Well, the documents we've got here, they really highlight the strategic military importance of Greenland. It's right there facing Russia, and it sits right on those crucial Arctic shipping routes. The Northeast Passage, the Northwest Passage. It's a pretty valuable piece of real estate, strategically speaking.
Yeah, I can see why it would be on the radar.
And then you've got the growing concern about Chinese and Russian activity in Greenland's waters.
Right.
The argument seems to be that Denmark isn't really up to the task of handling these security challenges on their own.
Which is where those pretty strong statements from President Trump come in, right?
Yeah, he's made some bold claims.
Like the one about Greenland being essential for the peace of the entire world.
Like a big statement.
It is.
I think it reflects a belief that the U.S. needs a stronger presence in Greenland. Maybe even outright control to keep things stable globally.
So you've got that as the backdrop. Then comes Vice President Vance's visit on Friday, March 28th, 2025. And this is where things really seem to heat up.
It was a limited visit. It seems like it got scaled back maybe because there wasn't enough consultation beforehand. Vance mainly visited the Pituffik Space Base, which is a U.S. military facility already operating in Greenland. But his remarks there, they were pretty blunt.
Blunt might be putting it mildly.
Yeah, he didn't hold back. He basically accused Denmark of failing to keep Greenland secure.
Yeah, he said they were underinvesting in the people and the security infrastructure there. And he even suggested that the U.S. base itself is less secure now than it was decades ago because of Denmark's management.
It's a pretty serious accusation to make against a close ally.
Yeah, and he didn't stop there.
No, he didn't.
Vance went on to say, "You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. That has to change." I mean, this is not the usual diplomatic language you hear between friendly nations.
Right. It really shows how unhappy the U.S. is with the situation.
And he also floated the idea that Greenland could choose to align more closely with the U.S. for its security and even for its sovereignty.
He even encouraged them to cut a deal for the U.S.
It's a pretty clear push for American interests.
Yeah, it seems like they see an opening here. Maybe they think they can appeal directly to Greenland's desire for more autonomy and offer a security partnership.
So what was the reaction from Denmark to all this?
Well, you can imagine they weren't thrilled.
I wouldn't be either.
Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen really took the lead in voicing their displeasure.
Yeah, his response was pretty strong.
It was. He came out swinging. He really criticized the way the U.S. was handling this, calling it disrespectful and inappropriate for allies.
He didn't mince words.
No, he used some pretty strong language, reportedly saying, "Stop treating us like dirt."
Wow.
It really shows how deeply offended they were in Copenhagen.
Yeah, it's not every day you hear that kind of talk between allies.
Rasmussen did say that Denmark is open to constructive criticism.
Uh-huh.
But the way Vance delivered his message, it was seen as a major diplomatic faux pas and a lack of respect for their sovereignty.
So a lot of hurt feelings there.
Absolutely.
But beyond the strong words, did Rasmussen offer any way forward?
Yeah, he did, actually. He said Denmark is willing to discuss changes to the status quo in the Arctic, even the possibility of a bigger U.S. military presence.
Really?
He kept pointing to the 1951 defense agreement, saying it already gives the U.S. plenty of room to expand its activities in Greenland if they want to.
So they're not completely shutting the door on the U.S.?
Exactly. They just don't like the way the U.S. is going about it.
They want to be treated with respect.
Right. They want to be consulted. They want their sovereignty acknowledged.
And it's not like they've been ignoring the changing situation in the Arctic.
No, not at all.
They've been investing in their own security up there, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. They just announced billions of kroners for new ships,
yeah,
drones, satellites, all for Arctic security.
So they're stepping up their game.
They are.
Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen also chimed in, didn't she?
She did.
What did she have to say?
She called Denmark a good and strong ally to the U.S.
Okay, trying to smooth things over a bit.
Right. And she also said she's planning her own trip to Greenland to meet with the leaders and the people there.
Which is a stark contrast to Vance's visit, where he didn't even meet with the Greenlandic government.
Exactly.
It's like they're trying to show solidarity with Greenland.
Makes sense.
So let's talk about Greenland's perspective for a minute. They're at the center of this whole tug of war, but it feels like their voice isn't always heard.
You're right about that.
They have their own identity, their own aspirations.
Absolutely. And they have a strong desire for self-determination.
Uh-huh.
And the polls consistently show overwhelming opposition to becoming part of the U.S., like 85% against.
Wow. That's a pretty clear message.
It is.
And Greenland's foreign minister, Vivian Motzfeldt, she had a pretty pointed statement, too.
Yeah, she basically said, you just don't take over. You speak and you talk. That's all politics is about.
They want to be treated as equals.
Exactly. They want to be part of the conversation, not dictated to.
And that Vance didn't even meet with them, that really speaks volumes.
It does.
Like, Frederiksen going there, that's a very different approach. There were also reports about a new coalition government forming in Greenland around this time.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Was that significant in this context?
I think so. It's being seen as a show of unity in the face of Trump's interest in Greenland.
Like closing ranks.
Yeah, presenting a united front to protect their autonomy.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about the reactions. Now let's dig a little deeper into the reasons behind the U.S. interest.
Okay.
We touched on this earlier, but let's really spell it out.
So at the core of it is Greenland's location. Location.
Prime real estate.
Right. It's strategically crucial. It's right there in the Arctic, facing Russia. And as the ice melts, it's becoming more important for those shipping routes.
Right. The Arctic is opening up.
And then there's the potential for mineral resources.
Like what kind of minerals are we talking about?
Well, there's a lot of speculation about things like rare earth elements.
Oh, wow.
Which are essential for all sorts of high-tech stuff.
So it's not just about the military then?
No, it's about resources too.
It's about economic power. So even if Trump wasn't so personally fixated on Greenland,
right,
there are still strong strategic reasons for the U.S. to be interested.
Absolutely. The U.S. is worried about being left out. They see Russia and China making moves in the Arctic, and they want to make sure they don't lose their footing.
It's like a new great game is being played out up there.
Exactly.
Now, the U.S. hasn't always been this assertive about Greenland, right?
Yep. There's a long history here. The key thing is the 1951 defense agreement between the U.S. and Denmark.
Okay.
That gave the U.S. certain rights and access in Greenland, mostly for defense purposes.
Uh-huh.
During the Cold War, the U.S. had a much bigger presence there. Lots of bases and installations.
Right.
There was even this experimental underground base powered by a nuclear reactor.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It was, but it was controversial too.
I can imagine.
But since the Cold War ended, the U.S. scaled back its presence in Greenland.
And now they seem to regret that.
Yeah, it seems like they feel like they left a void that others are now filling.
So where does all of this leave the diplomatic situation between the U.S. and Denmark?
It's pretty strained.
Not good.
Rasmussen even said the relationship is at an all-time low.
Ouch.
But despite that, Denmark is still trying to manage the situation.
Trying to keep things from completely falling apart.
Right. They're trying to reaffirm the alliance. They're trying to talk to the U.S.
Like damage control.
Yeah.
And what about domestically in Denmark?
Well, people are pretty upset.
They're not happy with the U.S.
No, they're not.
I mean, even the King of Denmark made a statement about this, didn't he?
Yeah, he posted on Facebook about his connection to Greenland.
Wow, so this is a big deal for them.
It is. There were even protests outside the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen.
It's really touched a nerve.
It has.
And meanwhile, Trump is still saying he's going to get Greenland.
Yeah, he hasn't backed down at all.
It's like a standoff.
It is.
So let's sum this all up. We've got clashing strategic interests, different diplomatic styles, and at the heart of it, the question of sovereignty. The U.S. sees Greenland as this vital territory, a potential security risk.
Yeah.
Denmark feels disrespected, like their efforts are being ignored.
And Greenland just wants to be left alone to chart their own course.
They want self-determination.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening.
Okay.
Given how important Greenland is and how strongly everyone feels about it,
Yeah.
how do you think this is going to play out?
It's hard to say.
Will these alliances hold up?
I don't know.
Or are we seeing the start of a whole new chapter in Arctic geopolitics?
It's a really complex situation with a lot of moving parts.
It's a powder keg.
It is, and it really shows how complicated things are getting on the world stage.
Especially when you've got these strategically important regions
I hear.
and the rights of autonomous territories all tangled up together.
It's a recipe for tension, that's for sure.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
It was a good one.
But this is definitely a story to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. Things can change very quickly.
So stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.